one power, invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power, indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. As simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, one power.
Vance, you're on with the welcome.
It should be Judy.
Yeah. Hey, there I am. Good morning. Such is the nature of life that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear. You are that opportunity, and so am I, and so it is. Welcome this morning, everyone, to CSL Midtown, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. We are so glad that you've joined us today. We welcome all people, no matter who you are or where you are in your life. We welcome you listening either live right now, online, or to our recording at a later time. Our center reflects diversity of life. And so we welcome you, whoever you are, whatever path brought you to be here today. Know that you are in the right place and that this is the right time for you. We know that you are an individual expression of the divine life in which we all live. And you are welcome to participate here today and to become part of our community. We hope that those of you who are watching this broadcast on social media will like and share this with your friends. For a better understanding of who we are and what we teach, listen now to our Declaration of Principles as written by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes.
A few of the Declaration of Principles we live by.
I believe in one God, one absolute power, and first cause to all things.
I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love.
I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience.
I believe in the unity of all life, and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding.
I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all.
And so it is.
So grateful, hey.
All right. Well, my name is Judy A. Lee, and I'm the moderator and practitioner for today's service. And this month's theme, as you may have seen on some of the opening slides, is Rolling in the Deep. And this week's theme is about boundaries. I have to say that when I first was thinking about this topic, I was really puzzled about what to say about boundaries. But, it brings up the truth about sometimes needing to say no to someone or to something that is happening in our lives. As we become more clear about who we are and more authentically ourselves, as we become more aware of our own inner guidance from spirit and our higher self, we can and must set clear boundaries. Sometimes we are asked to do something or to be something that just doesn't feel right to us in our heart of hearts. Those are the times that we need to set those clear boundaries. But we do so in a way that is not angry or limiting. There are times when we can slip into a role of trying to please others rather than listening to ourselves and to what our own personal choice and direction might be. Sometimes we can almost lose track of ourselves. This can also happen to us when we put pressure on ourselves to be perfect. Of course, at a spiritual level, we are perfect, but at a human level, I think we have to let that idea of perfection go. I know that in my life, I am simply striving to be more and more authentically who I am. And this means listening to myself, knowing my own direction. And so it means diving in deeply into our own personal awareness of who we are. I use tools like journaling or meditation to assist me with this. And yes, there are times when we set boundaries and we sometimes need to say no to things. But we learn to do this in a way that doesn't limit the expression of spirit through us. I think this takes time and discernment to know how to set a boundary so that we can express who we authentically are. This all takes time and practice on our part. And we make mistakes at times, and we regroup and we work at it some more. So those are my thoughts about boundaries. And what I'd like to do now is lead us into a spiritual moment of spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. So if you will, just wherever you are, allow yourself to be relaxed. Take some deep breaths. Allow your awareness to come to your breath. And allow yourself to be fully present in this moment. Close your eyes if you're in a situation that is comfortable to do that. And I will do this prayer in the first person, but please accept it. Accept it for yourself. I recognize and know that there is this one vibrant principle, this aliveness, this life permeating through everything. We call this spirit, universe, God, divine presence, oneness, wholeness. This power is everywhere. This presence is everywhere. This is the vibrancy of life. And it is a power for good. And I know that I am absolutely immersed in and filled with this power, filled with this presence, filled with this goodness that is life. I am never separated from it. I allow it to flow through me as the actions of my life, as the thoughts of my mind, as everything that I participate in my life, in my world. I know that this presence and this power is flowing through me. And as I allow it to flow in greater ways, I express great love, joy, peace, intelligence, vibrancy, creativity, goodness of every kind in my life. So today, I know that at the deepest level that I am well, that my natural state of being is one of vibrancy and aliveness and health of every kind, down to the most minute subatomic microscopic particle in my body, that every part of me is functioning in harmony with every other part, as my body and my health, my life are an expression of this good, of this life, of this energy that is God. I know that this day, that this service, this celebration that we are all participating in is a blessing to all who are listening. It is a blessing to myself, my own mind, and to everyone who is here. I know that we each hear what we need to hear, and that our lives are blessed, and that our spiritual growth is deepened and widened as we open ourselves up to learning truth. That is why we come together each time, is to be reminded of the truth of our being and the truth of who we are, that we are love, that we are vibrancy, that we are abundance, that we are goodness of every kind in this world. I turn away from any idea of stress, of lack, of limitation, of pushing too hard, of having my fear, my worry on high alert. I just turn away from all of that and instead sink into the truth and the reality that all is well, that I am absolutely one with oneness, with this wholeness that is everywhere present. And this is the truth for me, and this is the truth for all who are here listening today. So I'm just grateful for this. I release this treatment now, knowing that it is so, and so it is. And we open ourselves up for music for reflection now. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jan Garrett. This is J.D. Martin. He doesn't have a microphone because I'm going to be the one singing here today. This next song is one that I wrote with Karen Drucker. It's called Wild Heart. We are man and woman, we are black and white, with the spaces in between us. We are wrong and right, we are so much more than what we can see, and we're following our longing. We are tough and tender, we are brave and afraid, we are scared and excited, we are grit and grace. We are standing together, we are standing alone, and we're searching for belonging. Strong back, soft front, we are walking the wilderness. Strong back, soft front, wild heart. Ooh, wild heart. Well, I find myself living in that high, lonesome sound, trying to fit in the middle of a crowd. I'm a solitary dreamer on the outside looking in, and I'm following my longing. Well, it takes a lot of courage to finally leave home and go out beyond the boundaries of the safety we've known. We take our better angels wherever we go, when we're searching for belonging. Strong back, soft front, we are walking the wilderness. Strong back, soft front, wild heart. Wild heart. Yeah. Well, I hope that I can learn what it takes to be brave and to offer to you the connection I crave. 'Cause when I stand in my soul, I can give you my song, and I know that that's my true belonging. Strong back, soft front, we're walking the wilderness. Strong back, soft front, wild heart. Strong back, soft front, we're walking the wilderness. Strong back, soft front, wild heart. Wild heart. Wild heart. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Well, today we welcome back to CSL Midtown Reverend James Peak. Reverend James is an ordained CSL minister, and he's currently the Director of Information Technology at the CSL Home Office in Golden, Colorado. He also has taught various online CSL classes. He holds a bachelor's degree in Management Information Systems and a master's degree in Consciousness Studies from the Holmes Institute. He lives in Colorado, but I'm not sure if he's in Colorado today. And we live in the world of we can be anywhere on the planet and still be together. So we welcome you back to CSL Midtown, Reverend James Peak.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here this morning. It's interesting. I'm an IT guy. That's, well, at least half my world is IT. The other half is ministry, and they come together in my role at home office, but had some technical things pop up this morning. So if the video freezes, please know that it's just because I'm coming from this wonderful place known as Lake Chapala in Mexico, where the CSL Bilingual Conference, known as the Convention of the Americas, starts Tuesday. So I'm here for that, it's a wonderful, heart-filled convention. So the talk title today is The Boundary Dilemma. And the dilemma, when I was thinking of boundaries, and that was the general topic for the week, I was kind of always had this idea about boundaries. It's like, well, we don't really want to put up hard boundaries. Sometimes we need to, but in general, on our spiritual path, we kind of want to have maybe boundaries that allow us some freedom. And yet, so often, we tend to kind of restrict ourselves through boundaries. And so I was going to look at that this morning, kind of this dilemma of how do we navigate the world of boundaries, and maybe do we even need them? I mean, is there something beyond the idea of needing boundaries? The other thing that came to mind was thinking about boundaries was I had a friend named Pat, and they used to work for Google Maps years ago, but apparently they were terrible at drawing the boundaries between countries. And when Pat was let go, they were basically told they were borderline incompetent. Yeah, that was a pretty brutal joke, but someone's got to say it, so I did. But we're going to explore this idea of boundaries. And the first thing is that there's these boundaries that are known as restrictive boundaries. They tend to be very firm or hard boundaries. They hinder our growth. They really keep us from realizing our potential as these beautiful expressions of one life. Now, they're often self-imposed, or they could also be imposed by societal rules or norms, but belief systems that tend to limit us, but we want to, or we feel we need to stay on the path of this restriction. But they can lead to negative thought patterns and really hold us back. Some common examples are suppressing emotions. Many of us may have been brought up with the idea that it's not safe or it's not correct, or even both, to express our emotions, such as sadness or anger or joy. Sometimes this can be out of the fear of being rejected by others. If I really open up and say what's going on, then I may not be accepted, or I could be shunned. And so we restrict ourselves in that way. We can set up overly rigid boundaries, such as never letting anyone into our lives or even our homes. And then we can end up with a sense of isolation or loneliness that is hard to overcome. But again, it can be being driven by an idea of a very restrictive boundary. Another example of how this plays out on our spiritual path or life in general, for even those that aren't aware that they're spiritual beings in human form, a person may have the belief that I'm not worthy of abundance, I'm not good enough. And so this is operating within a restrictive boundary in this area of worthiness or abundance. And so it's really challenging for such an individual, even with the support of a minister or practitioner. It can still be very challenging because that root belief is that they're not worthy. It's going to be really hard to manifest good health and prosperity and have a sense of joy or happiness on a regular basis. And this ties right into that first aspect of consciousness growth. And just real quick, if you haven't been exposed to the aspects of consciousness, I'll just do a real quick run through. So there's 4 aspects. The first aspect is the powerless victim mentality. And it's the idea that life is happening to me. I can't really influence anything in my life. I just suffer and take it as it comes. The second aspect I refer to as the director. It's by me. It's where I'm manifesting change. Maybe I'm using spiritual principles. I'm aware of them, starting to change my life. Then there's the partner, which is the through me energy, where I have a sense of partnership, of co-creating with spirit or God, life, whatever word we choose to use to describe the infinite divine presence. And the last is that presence, which is the as me aspect of consciousness. Now, it's important to know and understand that we're always the fourth. We're always the as me. There's no true reality where we're not expressing as the one life, or we're all aspects of it. We're all unique expressions of the one life. But our own thoughts, our belief system, our emotions, our feelings, our life experience often pulls us out of that truth, and we end up living life through one of these other aspects. But if we're looking at strictly these restrictive boundaries, they really equate to and hold us in that powerless state, because we don't feel we can do anything outside those boundaries. And we may have restrictive boundaries in one area of our life and maybe not in another, but in that area where they're restrictive, we have a sense of very little power. And yet, Science of Mind tells us, what I like to refer to as the promise of Science of Mind, is that the principle of life is more powerful than anything in our past, any experience, any belief we may have. And so we are always free, whether we realize it or not, to change some of these boundaries, to manifest something different in our life. In fact, the Science of Mind teaching really encourages us to identify and challenge these types of limiting beliefs or boundaries. And we can do this through affirmations, visualization, meditation, of course, taking classes in the support of a practitioner, a spiritual guidance session. There's a number of ways that we can help to start to dissolve the false beliefs, take down these restrictive barriers, and start to live life in a different way. You know, Ernest Holmes really did emphasize that by understanding spiritual law and changing our thinking, we break free of limitations, and that would certainly include a limited belief that believes in a restrictive boundary. In The Science of Mind on page 32, Dr. Holmes wrote, "It has been written that the truth shall make us free, provided we know the truth, and we note that the evolution of consciousness brings with it the acquisition of new powers and higher possibility." So again, as we're on this path and we're learning, we're not changing life at all. We're just becoming more aware of the truth that's always present, the truth that there is a creative principle. There is a law that takes the imprints of our thoughts, our core beliefs, and brings that forward, manifesting into this world of form that we live in. And my personal take on these restrictive boundaries is they're really mental and emotional barriers that are born out of attachment, ignorance, and really the illusion and the belief in a separate ego. Now, what do I mean by that when I say separate ego? It's the idea that there's a me who's all alone, and it's just a thought form. It's not a reality, obviously, but there's a me who's all alone and separate from life, and that I have to kind of go on my own, and I have to figure it out, and that can lead to a lot of fear and anxiety and uncertainty, and even maybe putting restrictive barriers on myself so that I just don't take chances because I don't know if things are going to work out. And ultimately, it's keeping us trapped in what some other teachings would refer to as suffering. It's the mental, emotional suffering that comes from living a life of false beliefs. But as we grow in our understanding of spiritual truth, and once we start, it's really hard to stop. The growth continues regardless of, even as you move through these aspects, and you're maybe predominantly living in aspect 3 or even 4, the growth and the understanding, the expansion doesn't stop. Life is infinite. Life is growing. Life knows no boundaries. But as we grow in our spiritual understanding, experience positive change in our lives, of course, this begins a process. It's really a circular process of, as we manifest change, we start to believe more in the principles. And as we believe more in the principles, we can continue to manifest greater change in our lives. And we start to experience a different type of boundary, or start to work with a different type of boundary, which is the generative, Generative, generative boundaries. Now, these boundaries we consciously choose, so we're not asleep or feeling powerless. Sometimes those restrictive boundaries just kind of come out of behaviors or a belief that's even unconscious. But here we're consciously choosing limits that foster growth, creativity, and well-being. That may seem a little bit like an oxymoron, that I'm choosing a boundary that fosters growth. But as I go forward here over the next few minutes, hopefully it'll start to make sense and bring some more light upon that idea. But they're not about restriction. These generative boundaries are about creating a safe and structured space for transformation. And they tend to be pliable, protective, yet not restrictive or changeless. So a generative boundary is something that, as we expand in our spiritual understanding of life, does tend to move and allow for change and allow for growth, and it can be tweaked. Now, an example that we all have in our lives is our skin. Our skin is a living boundary. It protects us from harm, keeps our inside safe, holds everything together. And yet it's not totally restrictive, and it breathes, it sweats, it heals. And it's not armor, it's not restrictive like strong armor that holds everything in and keeps everything out, but it's dynamic. It's a responsive barrier to the conditions that are going on. When we're hurt, we get a cut. The skin closes up, repairs itself. And when we're hot, it opens to release heat. So it's very pliable, and generative. It's not restrictive. It's something that, it is a boundary, but it kind of moves and changes as needed. And like skin, our boundary should protect us, but also allow for connection and healing and change in our lives. And looking back at the aspects of consciousness idea, this would be the aspect of the director. where the director is coming out of that powerless state, realizing that these overly restrictive boundaries are hindering personal growth and spiritual awareness and understanding. So we begin to set healthy boundaries as we're manifesting change. And so we're starting to change our understanding, change our belief about life. And Ernest Holmes reminds us on page 322 of Science of Mind that life is a mirror, and we'll reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. So basically, that's the process of creation. Whatever we think into life is the experience we tend to get back. So if I tend to believe that the spiritual life is one of creativity and power and abundance and peace and love and divine expression, not only will that be what I start to notice in life, it'll be what I experience in life. And again, that wheel will continue to move forward in that way. Thus, as we're waking up from a limiting belief or a limiting understanding, moving away from those restrictive barriers, we will more easily manifest this positive change we're looking for. And we naturally, over time, as we start to move from the director, more of the partner energy, we start to find a deeper place within our being of compassion and empathy, recognizing the divine love that is present in and through and as everything. And it really starts to shift us into this partner consciousness, which is the life happening through me. So we're more of a vessel for life. We're tending to live a separate life in our head, shutting down our heart less often. We're more open to allowing life as spirit, or have the experience of spirit moving through us, which can over time lead to an even higher state. Now, the previous two boundaries, it tend to be stages. We could have some restriction in our life where we're having mostly generative or vice versa, but they tend to act more like stages, where the aspects of consciousness are more like states. We can kind of go back and forth easily. We could be in this state of partnering with spirit, and we're creating magnificent things in our lives, and then something happens and boom, we suddenly can feel powerless and victim-like again. But as far as the boundary aspect of things, if we're living life more in that partner energy, we're going to tend not to suddenly decide when we slip into victimhood that, oh, I need to put a restrictive barrier or boundary around my life. No, we're going to remember and know this isn't the truth of who I am. And whether it's through spiritual practice or sacred conversation, we're going to move back into that state or remind ourselves of the true nature of life. So this last stage isn't a boundary. This is the boundlessness. This is no boundaries. This is the realization of our oneness with and as life itself. This is where all sense of separation and limitation dissolves. This is where we're really living life as a spiritual being, not as a spiritual ego. So as we move through these aspects of consciousness, we can get to the point where we understand a tremendous amount about how the spirit works and how life works, and really show up beautifully in the world, and yet really be still living the experience that there's a doer known as me rather than a doer known as spirit, and that I'm tending to live life as this spiritual ego rather than the boundless spirit that we all truly are. And sometimes it can sound a little woo-woo, this all sense of separation and limitation dissolves away. But it's really not. It's really just the way life is. That if we stop, unidentify, or detach from the idea that there's me who's separate, and just allow life to unfold, follow our spiritual guidance, it's a much natural, straightforward way to live. A common example I use is if you like to commune with nature, maybe you're on a hike and the sense of self falls away. You're hiking, sure, you're seeing, you're hearing, you're feeling things, but it's not me hiking, it's just the presence hiking as me, as a body, as a being. So it's maybe takes a little of that potential woo-woo out of this idea. The other thing that, another example I like to use is, and I actually stole this from the spiritual teacher, Adyashanti, got to be honest, stole it from him. But when you go to the movies, think about how when you go to the movies, and you're sitting in the movie theater and you're watching the movie, are you sitting back kind of in a consciousness of an observer back here watching yourself watching the movie? We tend not to do that. We tend to be so engrossed in the movie that we're just living it, feeling it, being with it as one, really. Which is why following a good movie, we're in such a good mood, is that separateness, that ego, that me back here, life out there, fell away for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Or these days, with some of these longer movies, 3 or 4 hours. But it's a different experience. And so that's the idea that you can live life. It doesn't have to be trapped in a restrictive or even a generative barrier driven by an egoic mind that thinks it's separate. And so as we move deeper into this boundlessness state, we show up as, it shows up as equanimity among the challenges. The idea that we can be the calm eye in the storm that's around us. And this morning I had that storm. I had some IT challenges. The internet at the hotel I'm at was down, and then I was attempting to use my phone to provide internet service. And it was kind of working, but it was choppy. And then we switched to try to use just my phone. And then about 10 minutes before live, the internet came back up, not fully strong. So if my image has been a little choppy, that's why. But you know, the trick was to remain calm through that, because it's really hard to think, to use our mind as the tool it's supposed to be, and to maneuver any kind of challenging waters if we're not calm. The other thing that we start to have this sense of, in this boundlessness, this place beyond boundaries, is that we're really in the world, living in the world as a spiritual being, but we're not of the world or trapped in the world. So the events of the day, we don't shun them. We don't spiritual bypass what's going on in the world. But we also know that it doesn't define us or even have to define the human experience. That events are unfolding, and we know they're driven by consciousness. And so we know going forward that the vision that there's a world that works for all is really about the consciousness showing up at such a scale that then that vision is realized. You know, so it's easy to get caught up in the ways of the world, but if we just recognize that we're a spiritual being here for a period of time, we tend to move through the world in a different way, or less of a need for any kind of boundary. We can show up as the presence, live as the presence. And this thing called you, Ernest Holmes wrote, "See God in everyone, the same God with a different face, the same animating principle with a different form, the same divine presence clothed in individual expression." I'm going to read that again. And just, I think of this as a beautiful definition of oneness. See God in everyone, the same God with a different face, the same animating principle with a different form, the same divine presence clothed in individual expression. And when we recognize this truth, that we're all truly just expressions of the one life that's infinite, that's ever creative, that can create out of itself and yet not diminish itself, that there's no boundaries. Science tells us that the universe continues to expand. And this is also a place where paradox begins to be resolved, that we somehow have a sense that we are both the timeless emptiness and yet everything, that we're finite and yet infinite, that we can live without boundaries and yet we're totally protected. But when we live as the boundless presence, we become the walking, talking, living, praying example of possibility for others who may be living in that restricted boundary place. And so the invitation this week is to reflect on your own boundaries. Where you maybe have a restricted boundary that's, you know, very tight and very hard. And what are your generative boundaries like? You know, are they healthy? Are they supporting your growth? And how might you ultimately move toward the boundlessness with greater freedom and unity. Namaste.
All right. Thank you, Reverend James, for that very informative talk. Lots to think about there with that, living our lives. Thanks so much. All right. You can join us on Zoom in a little while to have a discussion with Reverend James about that topic. I'm going to go through our New Minister Sacred Covenant Easy Prayer right now. You can read along with me. You can download this from our website, cslmidtown.org. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. And knowing that I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know that I am one with all of its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community. Because I know that the highest purpose of my new minister is to express spirit, I therefore know that my new minister is a revelation of spirit as a principle. I further know that my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God. For it is written, principle is not bound by precedent. It operates according to law, and it is always available to those who are willing to align themselves with it. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister before me as inspiring spiritual oneness through wisdom, love, and authenticity. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself, for I am inspired to live as love in the expression of principle. I am awakening the wisdom within me by clearly communicating the principles of universal truth. I am a conduit of divine love, wisdom, and healing energy, recognizing the inherent wholeness within all beings. I am offering teachings, classes, and mystical studies grounded in spiritual principles to cultivate inner wisdom, personal transformation, and empowered living. I am extending the love, compassion, and transformative power of spirit into the wider community, fostering connections that heal, uplift, and support individuals in their unique journeys. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know that they will be revealed in a way that will express spirit and serve the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful God is gracious, and so it is. Excuse me. So we got some announcements. So every Sunday at 10 a.m. prior to the service, there's an adult study group. You can join them on the Zoom channel. Go to CSL. Well, I'm going to do that. CSLMidtown.org. Scroll down to the Zoom story and the link, and you can get there by doing that. And next week we've got Reverend Dr. Ron Fox back with his wife Becky as our practitioner for the week in a topic called Moving Beyond Our Stories. And now our affirmation for prosperity. With what I said about that, knowing that we've got a minister coming, we appreciate everyone that's hearing this, contributing to the center, keeping us going in this format that we've got now, but also knowing that in order to attract this minister, we need to have the financial resources to actually pay them for being here and supporting the community. So with that, you can click on the QR code or go to cslmidtown.org/donate and contribute. You can set up a one-time donation or an ongoing donation. And if you will, now say our affirmation of prosperity. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow. And all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. Like I said before, you can join us. Reverend James Peake will join us over on Zoom for discussion. And now it's time for our affirmation of life. I leave this place now knowing something better than I knew before. I go forth into the world with a heart full of love and a mind full of good sense. I look at the world in a greater way, knowing that I have within me everything I need to create the life I desire. I give thanks for this understanding, and I am grateful for the Spirit of life that lives through me. And so it is. And see you next week, or see you on.
Hey, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all that I have. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all that I have. Hey! Oh yeah. Grateful. I just say I am so grateful every day for all I have. Every day. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all I have. Every day I say it. Grateful. How I'm grateful. Every day. Oh yeah. I am so grateful. Oh yeah. So grateful. 'Cause I accept and I receive. I am so grateful. Oh yes, I am. I am so grateful. Hey, grateful. I'll just count my blessings. Grateful. I just count my blessings.
There is a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it.